We're going to be taking a look at the Dow Jones. We're going to look at gold. We're going to look at the NASDAQ. So we got a couple indices and commodities to take a look at here quickly today. So maybe we'll start with US30, which of course, what I always like to look at when I'm thinking about US30, right? I like to think about it as a way to sort of, sorry, I had to make sure my audio is okay. So we're good. What I always like to think about with the US30 is it's a big risk on, risk off gauge. And what I mean by that is that when the stock market is rising, usually what you're going to see is a lot of other risk correlated assets also rise, right? So you might see actually things like gold might actually poke up, or in some cases, you might see the Australian dollar or the Canadian dollar or the New Zealand dollar, some of those higher risk, less, I guess, risk off currencies like the dollar, the yen, the Swiss franc that tend to rise in market fear. The opposite happens when the market's rising. So today we're actually seeing the stock market see a nice move to the upside. And this seems to be a little bit promising. Take a look at this with me on the US30, and we can actually see that if we draw a simple trend line here to the downside, we have actually broken out of that structure. So we put in lower highs, lower highs, lower highs, but then bam, just recently as of Friday and today, we've got a nice start to the run up on the US30. Now, again, the US30 is a nice gauge, in my opinion, of looking at, market sentiment. Is the market fearful? Is the market optimistic, et cetera, right? And that's kind of where we're at with this. So if I take a look at US30, the question is this thing a buy? Well, it kind of depends your trading style, but I would say we're off to a very nice start. We put in a higher high, put in a higher low, and we've been pushing up. So for me, if I'm looking at this on a trend following perspective looks optimistic for buys on retests. So if I go ahead and I draw in some levels here, for example, some support here, if you get a retest of that area, the Dow or the US30 might actually be an interesting one to pick up on the retracement. We are teasing the idea of breaking through these highs that we put in on the open Asian session here in the foreign exchange market. We got started and shot to the upside, actually a bit of a gap to the open there on the indices. And now the futures, looking pretty good before the US stock market actually opens. So possibly we could get that momentum on the break, right? Or on the opening bell, which could offer some opportunities like this. But let's say we pull back. There might be also an opportunity to try and pick it up around that 50% level at the 30,750 mark. Might be an interesting spot to see.